All right, today I'm going to walk everybody through how to put a new horn into their Rivian to augment the factory horn. Now, I'm not a YouTube star. I'm doing this to give back to the internet, so don't expect a lot of production value here, but also I'm not going to ask you to subscribe to any YouTube channel. So you get what you pay for. Let's get started. Now, I did want to give a sense of the types of tools I use to do this that I already have on hand, just so everybody knows what they may need. I had a 10mm wrench here, a 10mm socket, multimeter, which isn't strictly necessary, but was helpful for testing a couple things out. Used my machinery handbook here as a nice block as I was getting the tub undone. Wire stripper and cutter. These are the shrink tubes for when I spliced all the wires in. Soldering iron, solder, a little screwdriver here to help getting the connectors apart, and then the heat gun for actually shrinking the shrink tube on the wires as I was doing everything. So let me walk you through what I bought. I have a horn here that I got off of Amazon, $14 horn, 500 hertz, based on what other people have talked about. This box here just has a couple basic connectors for the horn itself. It's maybe $1 worth of stuff, but I paid $8 for it because I'm lazy. And here is just some automotive waterproof connectors that I'm going to be utilizing. This again was like $8 for 5 of these. It's about $30 in to replace the horn, or augment the horn here on the Rivian. So let's start taking this apart. Now, I already removed the front and side here, but it was pretty easy. Essentially for the front one, I started here and just started gently prying from underneath, and it popped out pretty readily. There's just 5 clips. They look like this, sort of spread evenly throughout. Popped out without much trouble at all. The side was a bit more work to get them to pop, just because they're closer together, but again, they popped without too much trouble. Let's go ahead and do the other side here. I'm just reaching underneath, kind of finding the points, providing a little bit of upward pressure, not too much, until they pop out of place. Just like that. Back one's really coming off easy, not much force at all, it's just kind of popping right on out. Just like that, all 4 are off. I'm going to note at the top of these side pieces here, there are these sort of external clips holding it in on the rubbery side. I did actually remove that on the right side of the vehicle, but on the left side, I'm just sort of leaving it on. It was kind of a pain. It's just sort of pulling it out of the way. It'll be plenty out of my way to do this. Getting the tub out will be straightforward. There's only 6 bolts holding it in. Here, here, there, here, here. Oh, and there it is right there. So we'll go ahead and pull those out now. Okay, got all 6 out, no big deal. I put them over here just on the floor of the garage, or ordered in the pattern they came out in. Strictly, you don't have to do that, but I like keeping the same screws in the same sockets. And I did mention it's a 10mm socket that seems to fit the bolts. Didn't seem to be torqued down very hard, really easy to get them out. So the next thing before you can pull the tub is to disconnect. There's 2 electrical connectors, one here you can see on the right of the tub, and one here over here on the passenger side of the tub. We'll go ahead and disconnect those, and then we'll be able to pull this thing right out. Now, these connectors can be a little hard to access, so I found getting a block of some sort to go ahead and lift the tub and give yourself some access space is quite helpful. I'm using my favorite machiner's guide to do so. And then when you look at the actual connector itself, there's a small clip here on top that holds it in place. You just sort of put your screwdriver into the top there. There we go. And then you can kind of shake it loose. Careful not to pull by the wires, definitely only pull by the plug itself. All right, and once you get all that done, it can just lift right out. Now, don't do what I did and forget that you have like 50 pounds worth of stuff down there. Make sure you empty it out first, and then out it comes. All right, now that we've got the tub out, we can orient a little bit. Obviously, lots of wires and things going on, but the current horn is situated right in this little pocket here by the radiator fan. It lines up with the front grille of the truck. You can kind of see right in here where the horn is. You can also see on my truck there's a piece of foam hanging out from some sort of improper manufacturing, so I'll have to get that checked out. But it's just a simple 12-volt horn, nothing fancy going on there, and the connector comes right out of here, the harness. That's what we're going to tie into to splice in our new horn. In terms of mounting locations, I've seen some people try to use this mounting hole here behind the headlight. I didn't really want to use that space. You know, that's a big heat sink going on right there. I'm not sure how much airflow matters for the lights. Don't really want to screw with that. So instead, I'm going to use a mounting post down here. As you can see, I already have my 10mm wrench on right there. It's just a simple nut down there underneath the charger cables. And you have access to the other side right in here. The bolt head is right here. So go ahead and we'll hold that nut with the wrench here. And then I'll use my 10mm socket on the other side in the wheel well to actually get that guy off. All right, so I got that bolt out. Turns out the nut is part of that assembly right there, so you don't need to hold it with a wrench. It just sort of pops out when you're using the socket underneath the wheel well. So I'm going to go ahead and put the horn in now. I did modify it slightly. I bent these lead pins up so they're easier to access once it's mounted down there, and also put a slight bend in the mounting bracket itself so it fits a little better. So let's go ahead and add that in. All right, the horn is now on. You can see it's mounted onto that stud in the bracket. I put the bolt back in, although I didn't torque it down quite yet to give me some ability to move this around while I start wiring things up. Now the first thing to do is simply disconnect the current horn so I can get access to those wires. Again, it's that gray guy right there. So I'm gonna go ahead and reach in there. And there it is. Try to get the light, there we go. And then momentarily I'm going to go ahead and cut that and splice in the new horn. Okay, I've gone ahead and started to splice into this wire. You can see I have the black one exposed now, and for anyone that was concerned about voltage on this, I did want to show, because I did not connect the 12-volt system. It's just kind of floating. If I attach this guy to a part on the body, I'm getting 0 volts, which is what you'd expect. If this thing had 12 volts on it, the horn should be going off, but it's always worth checking just to make sure. And once again, same test, spliced off the green wire. Go ahead and touch the body. Again, 0 volts. So if I literally compare the voltage across both of these guys, just like that, you can see there's no voltage on these wires. All right, now I actually wire up the horn. I made myself a little splicing harness. So I bought these automotive connectors just on Amazon using a female connector and a female connector for both horns, and then a male connector here to go into the feed from the truck itself. And you can see I just spliced them together, soldered them on, and then I have some shrink wrap here that I'm going to go ahead and slide over these joints and then shrink them down to have a little harness. Now to make the pigtail for my new horn, I just bought this guy off of Amazon. It's a horn connector for somebody else. Don't really care about this connector, so I'm just going to snip it off, use these 2 leads and connect it to my new connector. You don't have to buy a thing like this if you have them around. I just was lazy, so I picked this up off Amazon. All right, so when you're done with this, you'll have a couple pigtails. There's my splice. This is the pigtail for the old horn. This is the pigtail for the new. And also on the truck here, the connector that I then integrated into the harness itself. So we're going to go ahead and hook all these things together and test it out. Now, while I'm going to hook this up, I realized that the leads for this horn are really far in there and hard to get. So I actually ended up pulling that bolt out again so I could pull the horn out and then attach directly to these leads. The other thing is there's no polarity on them. Supposedly polarity doesn't matter on these, but if you have multiple horns, the polarities have to match. And of course, I don't know what the polarity is on the stock horn. So we're just gonna go ahead and try it out both ways. Once I figure it out, reinstall this on the bracket with the wires already hooked up. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, I went ahead and tested the horn under both polarity situations, and honestly, it worked both ways. So it doesn't seem to matter, but for my situation, I used the red lead on top and the black lead on bottom. And where I interfaced with the car, I had red equals green and black equals black. And then as you can see here, the horn's in place. I tried to route the cabling to be neat, used a single zip tie here to attach to one of the harness points, and then tucked everything away and rehooked up the old horn. So everything is sort of nice and out of the way. And now I have a dual tone horn. Let's test it out. Now, one thing I noticed while putting the frunk back together is that the connector on the driver's side for the tub has 4 wires on the vehicle side of the connector, but only 2 coming off the tub side of the connector, which powers the small light on the inside of the tub. Now, there's been chatter on the forums about the extra 12-volt connector for the old 12-volt hookup in the frunk being still in the connector. And I believe that's what that is. Measuring the voltage on that, I am getting 12 volts off the battery on those 2 leads there. So it appears that for this truck, I still have the 12 volt if I ever wanted to add 12 volts for the frunk, which may be a future project for myself. Just to give you an idea, this is a VIN with a 26 XXX start, which was a summer 2023 build. So a rather recent truck still has that full 12 volt on the connector for the frunk. So it's possible to retrofit in a 12 volt power supply into the frunk itself, which is pretty neat. All right, almost reassembled here. It's just as simple as getting these things on, lining up the holes, and snapping it all into place. There we go.